Hello, and welcome to the January 16, 2019 edition of Shrewsbury Matters, a monthly show that presents a different perspective on the town's politics and problems. My name is John Lukács, and I hope you all had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. So, I had planned to cover some other topics today, but last night, January 15th, the Sewer Commission held a public hearing on the proposed new charges that all property owners in Shrewsbury will start paying starting in July of this year. Also in attendance were the town manager, several selectmen and finance committee members, and other town officials. The selectmen meeting room was filled with concerned residents. So what are these new charges for? These charges will pay the costs of the federal and state-imposed unfunded mandate requiring Shrewsbury to develop and implement a stormwater management program. That is, to clean up the water that runs off of impervious surfaces, rooftops, driveways, shopping malls, etc., and goes into the drains and then into our ponds and lakes. So, for almost all homeowners, the charge will be $90 per year. That's the minimum. That's for a small amount of impervious surface, which almost all town residents are in that category. Town homeowners are in that category. And it will be added to their water and sewer bills in July because town officials consider this to be a utility. Many residents spoke about very legitimate issues with the proposal. For example, they pointed out that the town has known that this mandate was coming for at least the last 15 years, but had done almost nothing to start mitigating the causes of stormwater contamination. They also pointed out that charging the same amount to all residential owners would be unfair to some, since some properties have little or no runoff to the town storm drain, while others had much more than average runoff. Both of these are serious issues, and there was no final resolution as to how these were going to be resolved. The first issue is yet another example of town officials neglecting a problem until it becomes a crisis. The second issue is one that has not been adequately addressed by the Sewer Commission, at least not yet. So, when I got up to speak, I raised two other problems with the proposal at the hearing. First, I questioned why half of the revenues needed for this stormwater management program, about $1 million, could not and should not be generated by asking the town to approve a Proposition 2.5 operating budget override. This makes perfect sense, since all owners of developed property would still pay the minimum annual $90 charge, only it would be part of their property tax bills and not on their utility bills. Why does this matter? Because the majority of owners who itemize deductions on their federal tax returns would get a tax deduction on the $90 if it's part of their property taxes, but not if it's part of a utility bill. It's true that this would reduce these owners' federal tax bills by only $20 to $30, depending upon their incremental marginal tax rate. But why shouldn't the town offer this option? After all, if the federal government is going to impose unfunded mandates on the town and its property owners, the town should at least be trying to minimize the impact financially of these unfunded mandates on its property owners. Now, people who know me know that I am generally opposed to operating budget overrides, so I don't lightly suggest an operating budget override to address the costs of stormwater management. However, in this case, it makes sense to ask town residents how they want to pay the $90 annual charge that all property owners will have as part of their property taxes, which are tax deductible, or in their utility bills, which are not tax deductible. In other words, if the federal government is going to impose mandates on property owners, we should at least do the best we can to make sure the financial impact on those property owners is mitigated to the extent possible. My second issue I brought up at the hearing was how well the revenues and expenses for the stormwater management program would be accounted for. would they be properly segregated from all other town departmental costs? The town manager said something to the effect about setting up some account, an enterprise account to do this, but failed to provide any specifics. It's important that all stormwater revenues be used solely for stormwater costs, and that only costs incurred by and for the stormwater system be charged to it. The current water, I hope that we don't follow the example of the current water and sewer systems accounting, because they have unusual, complicated accounting mechanisms that make it difficult to know whether they are being managed properly. The accounting for the stormwater management system must be clear-cut. In other words, all the revenues for stormwater should be used only for purposes of stormwater management, administration, and mitigation efforts. At the same time, we need to make sure that costs from other departments don't end up getting charged to the stormwater department. That would not be proper either. So having said that, let's move on to a related subject that came up at the hearing. When asked how the stormwater management fees would be paid, town officials said that it would be paid monthly, that's monthly, as part of their water and sewer bills. Many in attendance were surprised and alarmed to hear that water and sewer bills would go from quarterly to monthly billing. When asked why this change was happening, the town manager said it was a necessary precondition for finally identifying and correcting the town's huge, continuing problem with unaccounted water. According to the town's 2016 annual report on the water system, the town could not account for 380 million gallons in that year, or almost 35% of all water that the town pumped from its wells that year. The town manager also said that consulting companies were unwilling to help Shrewsbury resolve this problem until Shrewsbury went to monthly billing, as this was the only way to identify the sections of town where the largest amount of water was being lost. But the consultants have been telling the town for years that it would need to go to monthly billing before it could start to locate most of the unaccounted water. I mean, this makes perfect sense. I have made this point repeatedly at public hearings for several years. The way that works is right now, because you have quarterly billing and those quarterly bills overlap in different sections, you can't isolate. You can't say we're going to analyze and put meters at certain strategic sections of town that feed water to a particular section of town, check the meter reading there at the end of the month, and compare it to the meter readings of all the residential units, all the customers in that segment, and then see how much water is not being accounted for in that particular section. You do that for all the different sections in town, and you're going to be able to figure out which section of town has the most unaccounted water, and then you can drill down further within that section, down, 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 until you find this, a major source of the unaccounted water. It makes perfect sense. Unfortunately, it takes going to monthly billing to accomplish that. So, what did the town do instead of listening to the consultants? Instead, the town wasted millions of dollars on new meters and other equipment in an effort to reduce unaccounted water. All of these efforts failed. And as I've said publicly before, this failure is just another example of the selectmen's poor management of the town's water system. But wait, there is another problem caused by switching water and sewer bills from quarterly to monthly billing. The problem is that the water and sewer rate structures will have to be changed in order to keep water and sewer revenues constant, or else many customers' total annual water charges would change significantly. I pointed this out at the 2018 annual town meeting, but the town manager then insisted that new water rates would not be needed when the town went to monthly billing. So who's right? Well, I put together some spreadsheets from which I have summarized the following exhibits. They apply to all residential customers with a less than 1-inch water meter. They clearly show that the current water rate structure cannot be retained when the town converts to monthly billing in July, at least not without changing total water revenues collected or increasing some customers' water bills while decreasing others. So, if we could put up the first exhibit, please. All right. So this chart, I picked a few, two different consumption levels for residential customers. All these exhibits are for a customer who has less than a 1-inch water meter, so their current base charge is $20. So if we look at the first example, we'll see that the base charge, as I said, would be $20. The second column shows the quarterly bill for each of these amounts. The base charge is $20. The rate from 0 to 5,000 is $2.10. So for the first 5,000 gallons, the customer would pay $10.50. So that would mean, if you add up, and then from 6,000 to 15,000 gallons, the rate is $5.65, or $56.50 for 10,000. Those 10,000 gallons. If you add those three numbers up, $20, $10.50, and $56.50, you get a total quarterly bill of $87 for 15,000 gallons of water in the quarter. That adds up to, over 4 quarters, that's $348 a year. Now let's look at the monthly bill. The monthly bill, assuming that they consume 5,000 gallons each month, totaling 15,000 for the quarter, the base charge again would be $20. The rate for the first 5,000 gallons would be $10.50 for 5,000 gallons, but there is no consumption above 5,000 because it's being spread across 3 months and you're getting a monthly bill. So the period total is only $30.50, but that's a monthly charge. So if you multiply that by the 12 months, in order to compare it to the annual totals under the quarterly billing system, you will see that amount goes up. The amount for the monthly bill for annual bills for under the monthly scheme would be $366. So therefore, that would be an increase of $18 for a customer in this category, or a 5% increase. Doesn't sound like much, not too much to worry about. But wait, I'm not done yet. So let's go to the second example. Well, this is pretty much the same. The first 2 columns are the same because this is, again, 15,000 gallon customer per quarter. So the current rate's the same in all these situations, and the quarterly bill is still the same. However, you would think that the base charge, one might say, well, let's spread the base charge of $20 per quarter across the 3 months. So that would be $6.67 per month, which I show in the third column. Adding that to then we add the rate charges for the first 5,000. And again, since there's no consumption above 5,000 gallons because it's monthly, we now add up with a period total of adding $6.67 and $10.50, we end up with $17.17. And if you annualize that for the 12 months and compare that to the annual total under quarterly billing, you would see that the number is now $206.04. That would be a decrease of $141.96, 41% decrease. And of course, that could never happen because that wouldn't generate the necessary revenues if they decreased the billing that way. So there you go. And for a customer who's 15,000 gallons, that's above the average. The average consumption for a residential customer in town is, I don't know, about 11 or 12,000 gallons. So this is a little bit higher. But now let's take a look at the next exhibit, which is number 3. a person, 9,000, this consumption is 9,000 gallons per quarter. And I use 9,000 gallons because that's approximately what I think the average, using the state, what do you call it, 65 gallons per person per day, the sort of the state standard. That brings you up in this neighborhood. 9,000 gallons is a reasonable amount for, 2 people in a family. So let's take a look at that. So again, we have the current rates haven't changed. The quarterly bills, $20 base charge, $10.50 for the consumption of water between the first 0 to 5,000 gallons. And then, because we're only talking about 9,000 gallons, so in other words, we apply the $5.65 to the consumption above 5,000 gallons. 5,000 to 9,000, that's 4,000 gallons times 565 is 2260. And the quarterly bill for a person consuming 9,000 gallons per quarter is currently $53.10. Annual, the total for the year under that quarterly billing scheme would be $212.40. Well, if we would go to a monthly billing, we maintain the base charge, and now we only have 3,000, so we're only consuming 3,000 gallons per month. So that means the charges for water in the 0 to 5,000 gallon range is 3,000 gallons times $2.10 or $6.30. And there is no consumption above 5,000 gallons, so the charge in that range is 0. You add those up and you end up with $26.30 monthly consumption. But you have to multiply that by 12 to come up with the annual charge. That's $315.60, or a $103.20 a year increase if they didn't change the base charge. Person in this category, and they went to monthly billing, person would be see a 49% increase in their annual bill for water. That would be completely unacceptable. No way around it. Okay, so another way of trying to work this? Well, let's go to the fourth exhibit. We take the same 9,000 gallon customer, same current rates, same quarterly bill, on an annual basis, it's $212.40. But now let's say, okay, let's remove let's spread the $20 base charge per quarter to $6.67 per month. And let's see what happens there. So we have the $6.67 in the third column. Again, the rate for the 3,000 gallons that's being consumed monthly would be $6.30, and there would be no consumption above 5,000 gallons again. So now the period total would be $12.97 per month, but that's per month, so we multiply that by 12, and we end up with $155.64. Or there would be a reduction in this person's annual water bills of $56.76, or minus 27%. Now, but again, that would not be something that the town would be able to absorb and be able to keep their revenues constant to support the water system. So they can't spread, they have to maintain the base charge. They certainly can't reduce it down to a monthly level that's equivalent to 3 months. In other words, $6.67 times 3 months would give you the same $20 charge. They can't do that, because if they do, they're not going to generate the higher revenues from the higher consumption that would currently apply to a customer at 15,000 or 9,000 gallons, because they'll now be getting, the rates will be, if you don't change the rates, then those rates will be on a monthly basis, and most people will not get up into those upper limits of the 5,000 to 15,000 gallon range where there's the big increase in the charge per thousand. So again, it's pretty clear, it's obvious that whether you change, that whatever you do, okay, if you go to monthly billing, you're going to have to change either the base charge and/or you're going to have to change the monthly rate per thousand in order to generate the same revenues. Even if you do that, you're most likely, it's not going to be, probably won't be possible. If you do adjust them, you'll probably end up causing some people to pay higher rates than they were paying, getting higher water bills than they were getting under the quarterly system, or some of them might be getting lower water bills than under the quarterly system. But either way, going to monthly billing is going to require the formal rate structure that's published right online to be changed. So they're going to have to go through the process of going through the rate calculations and developing new rates all over again. Something that they told us, oh, well, we did a magnificent job a year ago. They had a consultant in. Of course, they ignored the consultant's recommendations for the rates because I pointed out that they were going to unfairly bias against hurt people at the lowest consumption ranges. So they came in and fixed the thing, but still refused to make the rates equitable. And then they said, oh, this is it. We're going to be fine for the next few years. Really? Well, not so fast. Going to monthly billing is definitely going to cause somehow the rates to change, the rate structure to change, and whether it's base charge or the rates at the different levels. It's just a fact. And how someone can say, oh no, that there won't be any need to change the rates, the rate structure, it's just ridiculous. I continue to be amazed by the poor management of the town's water system by the selectmen, who are in fact the town's water commissioners. Last May, they did not correct the town manager and tell town meeting that water rates would of course have to change when monthly billing went into effect. Is it possible that even now they have not bothered to obtain reports on the effects of changing to monthly billing? If they haven't, they're really, really doing a poor job. Now, since we are on the topic of the water system, I have a brief comment on town officials' recent efforts to minimize the continuing water quality problems in many sections of town. I had commented on these quality problems in my December show, but the selectmen, the town manager, and others have tried to downplay them in their local cable TV shows, saying that the problems were temporary and would resolve themselves within the next 6 months. They even arranged to have news articles in the local newspapers run in the middle of December so that they could make their argument. Well, trying to say that these problems are going to go away is wishful thinking. While these water quality problems may be reduced somewhat, it is almost certain that they will continue to some degree. And these problems may even become as bad as they had been in the past when the next summer drought occurs. And that's because when you have a drought and you pump much higher levels of water out of the wells, and the water is rushing through the water mains that much faster, creates the agitation which will stir up the sediment that still remains in the system. Despite all their efforts to get rid of it all, it's still there. So, for example, they claim that the manganese problem will soon go away on its own, but they have no good evidence to support this claim. Think about it. The manganese has been accumulating in the water mains throughout town for the last 30, 50, 100 years. How can flushing the major water mains a few times get rid of it all? And they even admit that there are still significant amounts of manganese after all of this flushing. That is, they said that the chlorine smell in the town of in the water of many residents is caused by reactions of the normal amounts of added chlorine with the sediment in the water mains. If that's true, then there must still be a lot of sediment with manganese in the water mains. Bottom line, Shrewsbury will continue to have water problems for a long time, and especially whenever there is a major drought. So we have these, I know had a lot of, my shows have been about water problems of one type or another. So when you add the problem with the fact that they're going to have to change water rates when they go to monthly billing, and the fact that they still have this problem with water quality, and they still have this mindset when they do change to monthly billing, will the rates now become equitable? They still refuse to consider the fact that they should make these water rates more equitable and come up with a more highly stratified rate structure for commercial users who by and large consume the largest quantities of water, and yet have rates that are substantially lower than residential customers, even residential customers who consume in the 25,000 gallon range. It's not equitable. And then on top of all of that, we have the situation where they still don't have good policies and procedures, written policies and procedures on the water system. I asked them about that, and they said they had nothing other than something about one thing on the website about new water connections and the charges for those kinds of things. That was it. You go to other town websites, and you'll see that they have a very structured set of policies and procedures, but not Shrewsbury. Anyway, so that's it on the. That's enough of that. I do want to mention one other interesting fact, though. During the Sewer Commission hearing last night, the town manager was asked about how many employees that were in the town, and he said that he wasn't sure. He said, but he thought that if you included the schools, there were around 2,000 employees. I was amazed that he said something like that. I mean, he should have said, I don't know, I'll have to get back to you, because I know the correct number was around 1,200, much closer to 1,200, maybe even a little bit below 1,200, but certainly nowhere near 2,000. I had to leave the hearing early, but on my way out, I caught Selectman John LeBeau and told him the 2,000 number was wrong, and that the number it was actually should be around 1,200, and he agreed with me. And I don't know whether afterwards, after I left the meeting, whether anybody corrected that point of view. But I just don't understand. Here's another example of bad information, whether it's telling people that, oh yeah, when we'll go to monthly billing and there won't be any changes in the rates, or whether we tell people that the number of employees is 2,000 when it's only 1,200. I mean, these are really serious errors. Or whether it's telling people that, oh yeah, our water rates are equitable. All these things, there's no reason why people make such silly claims. Is all I can say. Anyway, I'm about the end of my show time, so I just want to say that's all for today's show, and thank you for watching. And the next show will be taped in February, as usual. Thank you, and good night.